Hi, I'm Dr. Matt, and it's time for some hands-on biology. Let's go. Hi, I'm Matt Douglas of the Biology Department at Grand Rapids Community College, and we are here today with hands-on biology with Melissa, who is going to show us various aspects of the late Les Tassell estate here. He was a person who was a big game hunter at one time, and now he, before he passed away, he was beginning to preserve animals here and breeding them. So we'll take it away from here.
And this is Millie, the resident dromedary, looking for some grain.
And she's not being satisfied.
No. And she lives out here with 2 zebra mares and a zorse, which is a cross between a zebra and a horse, and she'll be showing up later.
So can you tell us, Melissa, about this dromedary and how excitable she is and how old she is?
This is her. Millie, get back, back off.
There.
Now, I didn't hit her hard, but camels are definitely, especially young camels, are excitable animals. They need a lot of training and discipline. Millie hasn't had a whole lot of discipline out here, and the fact that she's the only camel out here probably doesn't help. If she was with other camels, they would be the ones kind of telling her what is acceptable behavior. For instance, the growling is sort of a warning, like, I'm getting kind of, you're bugging me, I might get aggressive. And definitely the hopping is something that is just not no, get back, back off. It's not an acceptable behavior.
So the hopping is a kind of an aggressive thing,
It's
Melissa?
sort of aggressive. It's also real typical of young camels. Back off. Get back.
So
and she responds very well to that verbal command, and just sometimes a light tap on her chest with a crop. But that is something that she needs to learn, especially she is definitely trainable. Someone could train her to ride, but these kinds of behaviors need to be dealt with early on just so that she's safe to handle.
Well, can you tell us about the origins of this camel?
She came from a farm actually in Wisconsin. So she's used to the cold weather. She weathered the winter really, really well. They do have a shelter in the barn. She basically eats the same kind of food as you'd feed like a horse. Forage as far as hay. She'll eat grass, she likes to eat leaves, and she will eat grain. Camels love salt, too. That's why she likes to lick my hand.
So she might be looking for a handout today. Maybe that's why she's a little irritated.
A handout, yeah, and she's quite well taken care of here, and she's used to when people entering the pen, she's going to get some food.
Ah.
So
she's irritated and spoiled
but
at the same
she really
time.
is not. She's a nice enough animal. She's just, like I said, she's young, and she doesn't really have all her manners down yet. So she would do well with somebody. Actually, probably a lot of times people who train horses for a living have really good luck training camels. They respond well to the same kind of...
Now, what is she doing right now? This is not the hopping behavior.
Well, she's getting ready to hop.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Pre-hop, huh?
She's getting ready to bounce.
Okay.
Yeah. And bouncing is, I read a lot about it, and bouncing is very typical, especially of young camels.
Okay.
But I won't let her bounce on us.
This is typical juvenile behavior.
Typical juvenile behavior.
Boy. And I take it she's shedding now fairly well?
She's shedding, and you can kind of see this is what she'll look like all over her body eventually by early summer once her hair's shed out. And she loves to be brushed, so she could probably use a good brushing right about now. But she will lose quite a bit of her winter hair.
And tell us about her hump now. She's a one-humper.
Yep,
as you
she's
said.
a dromedary.
Dromedary.
And the hump actually, and I didn't know this until I started looking into it, everybody says it stores water, which is sort of true, but actually it's made up of fat. And it does allow them to go for long periods of time without taking food or water. They also are very good at regulating their body temperature. And that makes it very conducive for them to live in those very hot, arid climates. Because they can lower their body temperature if they need to.
And what is your plan for this camel? You told me about an interesting plan before we started shooting.
The plan for this camel is to take her. She's actually going to leave in a few days. Millie, back off. Get back. Back off. Yeah, I know. Maybe we'll give you a little treat in a minute. She's going to go down to Kentucky, where she's going to be bred with a Bactrian camel. That's a double hump camel. And they are hoping that she will produce from that a double humper baby. So, and she's going to eventually go live on a farm up in Hart, Michigan with her baby.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Well, the best of luck to her, huh?
Yes, she's quite a character. And I started working with her last summer and actually got to the point where I could sit on her, but not make her go where I wanted to go. So she will. I really hope that whoever ends up taking her does invest in a trainer for her, because I think she'd make a great riding animal.
Well, how long will she live? What's her lifespan?
The lifespan of camel that's a really good question.
Like 20 years?
I think
like
it's 20 to 30 years.
And I noticed her nose has these folds so that, you know, she kind of keeps the water moisture, you know, inside her system and doesn't lose so much.
Yep.
It's a very interesting nose. It's almost totally flat.
Well, and the way that their teeth are formed, she has,
Can
if
we
you
get
can
a shot of
kind
her
of
teeth?
see, the upper palate at this point doesn't even have any teeth.
Right.
It's just the lower jaw.
That's a great shot.
Has teeth right now. And camels, the reason that I do get after her for that bouncing behavior is that the typical way that a camel will attack if they want to hurt you is they stomp you to the ground,
And then,
either by biting you and throwing you down or stomping you down, and they'll stomp you. And that can be pretty serious. So.
yeah, so
We don't want her to get into that kind of a habit. But she really is a good girl. And she gets along great with the zebras.
And I know this is a real long shot here, but I noticed that the fecal pellets are very round and they're very moose-like. So
Yeah, they are.
they're kind of like little grapes almost.
Yeah, and they come out at all, just
Any opportunity.
kind of any opportunity. Sort of a slow leak.
So Melissa, this animal belongs to the family Camelidae, and we should probably tell our audience that in North America, you know, 100,000, 150,000 years ago, we had a number of representatives of camels, extinct camels, that they now find fossils of in the Midwest. And we should also let them know that the vicuña and the alpaca and the llama of South America are also in the camel family. So we do have camels in the New World. They're just in a little different shape and form. And they're all leaf eaters, pretty much.
Yep, she loves her leaves.
There you go, atta girl. Okay, Melissa, we're here with obviously two animals that we commonly know as zebra, and they're in the horse family. Do you want to tell us more about these two particular animals and what's going on?
Sure. These are two mares, and they are Grant's zebras.
Okay.
There are different zebra
Species? Yep.
and these happen to be Grants. They are the most common zebra species, and they are most commonly what you will see people keeping as, you know, they're not domestic animals, but keeping on ranches.
Okay.
They're smaller, and they can be distinguished by their stripe pattern from the other zebra species. Now, this one in the foreground is not pregnant, but you can see the one in the background is very obviously
Pregnant.
yeah, impending birth.
Right.
We think
How soon?
we've just been able to see her bag filling up with milk. So that usually means that the birth is 2 to 3 weeks out.
Oh, really? Now, when
Yeah.
you said the bag filling up with milk, what do you mean?
Well, her udder.
Her udder.
Yeah.
The udder end?
Yes, the udder end, which you really can't see unless you crouch down and try to look underneath.
Oh, we're good at that. We might be able to get a shot at that.
But that it has just in the last couple of days really started to fill up, and that's a sign that she will have this baby within probably 2 or 3 weeks.
You know, I noticed a line underneath her belly, too. And women get a line sometimes when they're pregnant, a dark
Yeah.
line from their navel
Yeah.
down. And I thought I saw a line there, too. Is that a possible sign that she's pregnant as well or not? Or is that just something I
Well,
made
I think
up?
that's just, no, actually, I think that's just a marking
say.
on her. Yeah, I'm not sure, though.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about zebra gestation is that it differs from a horse in that a horse gestation is typically about 11 months. And the zebras, it can vary, but it tends to be about 13 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 12 to 13 months.
So it's pretty long.
It's very long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been anxiously awaiting the birth of this one. Now, what's different, too, about the zebras is, whereas if you were having a horse foaling, you would typically, if you were having a problem, call a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
But when you keep animals like this, they are wild animals, and they are not able to be vetted in a typical fashion.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we're hoping that everything just goes smoothly. She has foaled before, so that means that most likely she'll know what to do. But if there was any type of problem, really the only resort would be to have a vet come out and tranquilize her with a tranquilizer gun.
Really?
Yeah.
And that might jeopardize the birth then.
And that could jeopardize the birth. So that's one thing to consider.
I noticed as far as comparison with a horse, and they're not too distant related from horses, but their rear ends seem to be a little bigger. Is that true? And they're a little flatter on top?
Yes, their conformation is different from a horse in that you can see their withers are real flat and
I
straight.
love that word, withers.
Yeah, and that's typically the hump
Right.
that you see at the base of their neck.
Okay.
And on a horse, you'll get usually quite a pronounced bump, and then their back slopes in a little bit, and then it kind of rises up over the rump. But on the zebra, you can see it's very straight and flat. And that is one of the reasons that they are not suited to riding, because their backs just are not strong
Oh,
like a
strong
horse.
enough for that. Okay.
Yeah. So
And these are the smaller of the several species of zebra.
these are the smaller ones. There's a larger species called a gravy zebra, and that is the largest zebra species. And they tend to be quite ornery. They're very, very difficult to handle. And their striping is different in that it ends as it gets down towards their belly. So their bellies are white.
Okay.
And these zebras actually, some people are able to have pretty good luck in training them, but it's a much different process than training
I remember
a horse.
we talked about that, and the reason why zebra were never really domesticated in Africa was because of their different temperaments and their different shapes, you know, which would be more difficult to harness. And so we have them here, but they're primarily as livestock almost, not as anything that could do much work on a farm or...
Exactly. People who keep zebras now here in the States are keeping them mostly for interest and color.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there are people who do train them. I've run across a couple of websites where people have actually trained their zebras, but it's a much lengthier and more involved process than training a horse.
Okay.
Zebra is different in that they're extremely attached to their herd. And to have any luck in training them, you almost have to separate them completely from a herd. because otherwise they'll just kind of revert back to their herd behavior.
Okay.
And they really do well with repetition. So every day you have to repeat the behavior that you're trying to instill in them.
So to retrain them every day, huh?
Well, you have to keep reinforcing the behavior, and while adding new ones so that they don't get bored.
Right.
But it's all about repetition and reinforcement. Whereas people who train horses know that once you've instilled a behavior, you can pretty much, be guaranteed that that horse is going to retain that particular behavior. And that's not the case with a zebra.
Oh, now are these more erratic than horses then?
They're,
psychologically more erratic, less dependable, or?
They're much less dependable. They're quite unpredictable.
Okay.
And they are extremely geared towards self-preservation.
Oh.
So it makes them really skittish. They will jump almost anything to get away from danger if they sense that they're in danger. And that's where you'll see the fencing here was put up specifically to hold these zebras.
They can almost get over this fence?
It needs to be that high so they can't. Wow. We had an incident where the zebra was in the barn, and as an experiment we thought, well, let's see if it'll stand in the stall.
No.
And the stall wall is 5 feet tall, and the zebra from a standstill
cleared
the wall.
Whoa, that's Olympic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people who are contemplating keeping zebras, the care involved in keeping a wild animal like this is really, really different.
Extraordinary then, huh?
Yeah. And, just the medical issues, because you cannot use regular vetting techniques. You can't use regular farrier services. You really have to be careful with their diet. They need special supplements.
Oh, yeah.
You need to make sure they get the right balance of selenium and different vitamins. And also with zebras, you have to be careful that they don't get overweight, because then they can have a lot of problems with their feet.
Oh.
So there are just several things to.
So they're very sensitive animals, not
consider.
for the average family.
Not for the average family, and they're beautiful and they're really amazing to watch, but they definitely require specialized care.
Well, it's hard to believe this is in Grand Rapids and that we're not in some veldt in Africa.
Yeah. And this is a nice place. They've got plenty of room to roam here. So they definitely need space to be able to roam around as well.
Okay, so Melissa, we have a zebra story that's worth telling to the audience out here. What is it?
Well, the zebra story is that the first time I was ever out on this property, I was here for a reason completely unrelated to the zebras, but I heard that they did have a zebra gelding living here, and I was just dead curious because I love horses and I've worked with horses my whole life. So I asked if I could see it, and the caretaker here said, sure, no problem. So as we're walking back to the pen, I'm asking questions such as, oh, is it tame? Can you handle it, this gelding? He said, oh, no, nobody can get near it. He's really wild. But I walk into this pen, and this gelding attached himself to me like a puppy dog.
Really?
It was just really incredible, and it was thrilling because I'd never been that close to a wild animal. And he just let me cradle his head, and he wanted to be petted, and I was scratching his ears. So that kind of started my real interest in these zebras, and subsequently Mr. Tassell ended up purchasing another gelding and the two mares and the Zorse and the Camel. So it became kind of a project to see how much progress we could make with these
that's just an awesome story.
Animals.
And speaking of a strange animal, tell us what this is, because I don't think many people have seen an animal like this.
Yeah, this is a Zorse, and she is a cross between a plains zebra and a quarter horse.
And could you tell us what a quarter horse is, just for the
yeah, a quarter horse is
here?
it's a horse breed.
Okay.
Yep, it's actually a horse breed. It's the kinds of horses that you typically see a lot of people who ride Western.
Oh, okay.
Will have
That's
quarter
a quarter
horses.
horse, okay.
They're named quarter horses because they were developed to be very fast in quarter-mile races.
Oh, I see.
And so they're just a real nice, reliable, popular horse breed. So she is half and half. Like a mule, she is sterile,
Okay.
so she will not be able to reproduce. But the cool thing about Azores, and they are gaining popularity because you get the unique striping like a zebra.
Right.
But as you can see, she's a little skittish, but she really has not been worked with very much, and already you can see that she definitely has potential to be trained.
Well,
and
she came right up to you, so.
they are much easier to train than a
The zebra.
pure zebra.
And you were known as a zebra whisperer, I heard.
Well, now see, that story that I told you kind of started this rumor, and I swear I still don't know why that happened. But I did have really pretty good luck with one of the zebra geldings, getting him to the point where he was comfortable wearing a saddle and a bridle, and we actually had a doll, a large doll, that we'd sit on him.
Seriously?
Yes. And so he was a really wonderful animal to work with, very sweet. I could lead him around. He was responding to voice commands, but he's no longer on the property. So
Now this Zorse,
yeah, it's a good girl. Yeah,
the
it's a good
stripes. Do you want to
girl.
explain to our audience what is going on with these stripes? I noticed that they continue all the way around and around the legs as well.
Yep.
And so the background, they think the primitive background was black or
They think that the primitive background was white. This is what I've read, at least, is that the black stripes are what are genetically dominant.
Okay.
So that is what is passed as far as the pattern.
Okay.
And all zebra patterns are different, and they can recognize each other from their patterns. So she really has nice striping, because
Yeah, she
sometimes
does.
on the Zorses, you just never know how much of the stripe pattern is going to show up.
Okay.
And she really got a lot of stripes.
So the hybrids will vary depending on the genetics that are involved and
Right.
the interplay of genes and that sort of
The
thing.
interplay
So you
of
never know
genes.
what you're going to get, but this is a nice pattern on this.
Really
Zorse.
nice pattern. You can kind of see, if you can see her face even. She's got,
Yeah. And
oh,
her
baby.
nose, her-
It's okay. Good girl. And she will, I've actually seen her when she's shed out in the summer. She's still got quite a winter coat on. She will be more pronounced.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because she'll lose all this winter hair. And
Well, her morphology looks mostly like a zebra, really. to
she
me.
does, yeah, she definitely has more of the zebra
Yeah.
conformation. And she's got, they're real narrow in the legs. You can see the hooves,
Yes.
very
yeah.
narrow.
It's so interesting because in Asia, I know there's a really, like the primitive ancestral type horse called Przewalski's horse, and it's kind of a dull brown, but it's a short, stocky little animal, and I know they've been trying to breed that back into nearly a pure genetic line. And here we have all these hybrids, but most of the hybrids aren't fertile back to either the zebra or to the horse.
Right.
So, I mean, they've split along in the evolutionary lines here at some point.
Have you come across any of the research that they're doing with the quagga?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
they-
they're trying to reintroduce
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
And that's primitive
In Africa.
zebra in Africa.
Right. That's supposedly the most ancestral stock for the zebra.
For the
and,
zebra.
And now they've got to the point where it's fairly pure. And so, yeah, they can clone that animal and get it back into the wild. So it's quite an exciting story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she likes this.
Yeah, she does.
And
Don't
she,
you love those lashes? Is that why you like horses? Because of the eyelashes are so
oh,
pronounced?
the eyelid, yes, the pretty eyes.
Yeah, they've got pretty eyes.
Yeah, she really, again, this animal would do really well with some consistent training. She's probably rideable.
And so for, rather than a horse,
girl.
Zorse would be okay for children or family if they had enough property?
If, again, it's just like, I think keeping any kind of animal, even if you're going to keep a horse, it's a huge commitment. And it's not enough just to say, oh, they're cute, they're fun to look at. You really have to be committed to their care and their training.
Yeah.
But yeah, a Zorse would be a little more realistic choice. Even though you still have to keep into consideration that half of her is a wild animal, genetically, wild. So with the Zorse, you're always going to have that tendency towards a little more unpredictability.
Now, how does she get along with the zebra?
That's
what I want to know. Who's dominant here?
She's pretty dominant.
Is she?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they run from her when she's around?
Yeah,
in the pack?
although she's got, as I'm looking at her now, she's got
a couple
little bites here.
Yeah.
So they've been going back and forth. They keep to themselves quite a bit, but I've heard that when it comes time for feeding, she doesn't like anyone near her. So she's been having a tendency to kick and bite.
And as far as she's concerned with the camel, who's dominant?
It's really interesting because you think that Millie, the camel, would be dominant because she's bigger, but really the zebras kind of have control of her.
Do you think that's because they're smaller and can run underneath her?
Well,
and spook her?
I don't know exactly why it's worked out that way. It's always interesting to kind of see how herds work out the pecking order, but they all get along. They do not fight with each other. The only time they really ever have conflict is if they're feeling like there's a rivalry for their food.
Right.
So we've been pretty careful about making sure that they're separate when they're fed so that they don't feel stressed out like they have to fight.
Okay, well, Melissa, thank you so much for being with us today, and you're a great host, and you really know your animals, and I just really appreciate your being here. And I'd like to know when the baby is actually here, so we can come out and shoot the baby.
I will let you know, because that will be really exciting.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah. Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you guys for coming out.